I now reconvene the general session. Will the recording secretary please call the roll?
Catherine Williams Brown. Jose Cardenas.
Present.
Michael Cooney.
Here.
Michael Direttore.
Present.
Marisol Direttore Escobedo.
Here.
Anna Marie Francois.
Present.
Makita Quino Shire.
Present.
Megan Gross.
Present.
Johanna Harwick.
Present.
Susan Aradia.
Present.
Terry Jackson.
Here.
Bonnie Clark.
Present.
Monica Martinez.
Here.
David Simmons.
Here.
Tina Sloan.
Here.
Kimberly White Smith. We have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to remind members of the public about the process to provide public comment. The committee chair will announce when the public comment period is open during the presentation of the agenda item and ask for anyone who wishes to comment to notify the meeting moderator. Individuals who join the meeting via the Zoom webcast will need to click on the raise hand icon to inform the meeting moderator that they would like to speak on the item. The meeting moderator will notify the individual when it is their turn to speak by calling their Zoom ID. Please remember that the Zoom ID is the name used when logging into the meeting. At that time, the individual will be prompted to unmute their microphone and will be able to share their comment. Please note the Zoom ID name used by the member of the public to join the Zoom meeting will be displayed to the public when the individual provides public comment. Individuals who join the meeting via the US toll-free number will need to press *9 on their phone to inform the meeting moderator that they'd like to speak on the item. The moderator will notify the individual it is their turn to speak by calling the last 4 digits of their phone number and will allow them to unmute their telephone. At that time, the individual will be prompted to press *6 and will be able to share their comment. Please note that only the last 4 digits of the caller's phone number will be displayed to the public when the individual provides public comment. Okay, we are going to change the order of business this morning and move items 1I, 1J, and 1L to the morning before we start the Educator Preparation Committee and the Professional Practices Committee, so that we have after that time for our strategic planning session, and then at the very end we will open for our public comment and our new business item 1K. All right, so we will start with item 1I, interview and recommendation of members and alternates to the public member positions for the Committee on Credentials. The ad hoc committee recommends to the full commission the appointment of Barry Kalar and Meva Renault to serve in the public member positions on the Committee of Credentials. I move to approve the recommendations of the ad hoc committee. Do I have a second? I have a second by Commissioner De La Torre. Discussion? Commissioner Cooney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I want to speak on this item as the chair of the ad hoc committee, serving with Commissioners Cardenas and Simmons. We had a very enjoyable time, not only being together, but in such a good cause. The 2 individuals that we interviewed for public members of the commission were very well qualified, very much with the possibility of adding to the quality of our commission. So we were unanimous in our choice of both interviewees as worthy of recommendation to the commission. I'd like to ask my fellow ad hoc committee members if they have specific comments they'd like to add. Jose?
I would just say that they're both extremely different candidates, and they will make the I think their voices will be extremely important for the COC to hear.
Great.
I would just like to add the same thing as Commissioner Simmons said as well. Just that both new members will bring a lot to the commission, and it was pretty exciting to go through the interview process with them and to hear what perspectives it will be bringing. Very thoughtful, very insightful. So looking forward to having them on the committee.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. Will the recording secretary call for the vote?
Jose Cardenas,
Aye.
C. Michael Cooney,
Aye.
Michael De La Torre,
Aye.
Marisol De La Torre Escobedo,
Aye.
Megan Gross,
Aye.
Johanna Harwick,
Aye.
Susan Aradia,
Aye.
Terry Jackson, aye. Bonnie Clark,
Aye.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
David Simmons,
Aye.
Tina Sloan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And I want to thank Commissioner Cooney, Commissioner Cardenas, and Commissioner Simmons for serving on the ad hoc and conducting this important interview. Thank you. All right. The next item is agenda item 1J, report of the closed session items. Vice Chair De La Torre Escobedo, are you ready to read the closed session items? Good. Thank you.
Yes, I am. Let me pull it up here. Okay. Closed session items. Staff briefed the commission on the case of Russell Charles Ernest versus Commission on Teacher Credentialing, Committee of Credentials of the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, DOEs 1 through 20, and no reportable action was taken. The commission granted the following petitions for reinstatement: Ramatulia Aryamal, Amanda Johnson. The commission denied the following petitions for reinstatement: Sharon Bonner, Shane Carnival, Diane Clay, David Johnson, Diodegaria Laxon, Eric Montijo. The commission rejected the proposed decision in the matter of James Byerly and called for the transcript. Commissioner Marisol de la Torre Escobedo recused herself on this item. The commission rejected the proposed decision in the matter of Paul Stein and called for the transcript. The commission rejected the proposed decision in the matter of Mauricio Zelaya and called for the transcript. The commission adopted the following proposed decisions: Mohamed Asiad, James Gross, Alejandro Sanchez Morales. Commissioner Jose Cardenas recused himself on this item. Cynthia Simeon and Tony Tran. And that concludes the closed session report. Oh, my apologies. It does not conclude the closed session report. Here we go. As I'm scrolling through here. All right. The commission reviewed the transcript in the matter of Samuel Kwaku Agie Fosu Goodman. A decision and order will be prepared for the commission's adoption. The commission ordered a 30-day delay for preparation of the decision and order. The commission reviewed the transcript in the matter of Shauna Berlin. A decision and order will be prepared for the commission's adoption. The commission ordered a 30-day delay for preparation of the decision and order. The commission discussed consent calendar item number 13, William Caez, and accepted the recommendation of the Committee of Credentials. The commission discussed the following consent calendar items and remanded the matters back to the Committee of Credentials. Number 49, Carmelo Perez, and number 58, Julie Robertson. And this concludes the closed session items.
Thank you. All right, now we will move to item 1L, nominations and elections for chair and vice chair of the Commission on Teacher Credentialing for 2022. Executive Director Sandy, I'm going to hand it to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Section 301 of the Commission's policy manual allows for nominations for chair and vice chair to be made orally in open session at the last meeting of the calendar year of the Commission. Are there any nominations for the position of chair? Commissioner De La Torre Escobedo.
Yes, I nominate our current Madam Chair Sloan.
Thank you. Commissioner Hartwig.
I second that nomination.
Thank you. And did I see Commissioner Jackson also?
Yes, I was just going to second.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Are there any other nominations for the position of chair? I will now close nominations for chair and ask if there are any nominations for the position of vice chair. Commissioner Sloan.
I would like to nominate our current vice chair, Commissioner De La Torre Escobedo, for vice chair 2022.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson. Are there?
I'd like to second that motion.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other nominations for the position of vice chair? Hearing none, I will now close nominations for vice chair. Before we open the election, I would like to ask the nominee for chair to give a brief statement. And this statement will be followed by a vote for chair, and then we will move to the position of vice chair. Commissioner Sloan.
Thank you all. I will make a brief statement. One of the things that I have been thinking about throughout this meeting is what a strong commission we have at this moment in time, and the perspectives that each of you are bringing to bear on the different items that we have before us. I have come so much to appreciate our variety and diversity of perspectives. I think we are all making very thoughtful decisions on the issues that come before us. I think we have a lot of important work to do over this next year, and I am honored to be able to do that with all of you. So thank you. If I get voted in.
Thank you, Commissioner Sloan. I will now open the election for the chair of the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. Do I have a motion to elect Tina Sloan as the chair of the Commission for 2022? Commissioner Cooney moved, seconded by Commissioner De La Torre. Will the recording secretary please call for the vote?
Jose Cardenas,
Aye.
C. Michael Cooney,
Aye.
Michael De La Torre,
Aye.
Marisol De La Torre Escobedo,
Aye.
Megan Gross,
Aye.
Johanna Harwick,
Aye.
Susan Aradia,
Aye.
Harry Jackson,
Aye.
Bonnie Clark,
Aye.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
David Simmons,
Aye.
Tina Sloan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. I would now like to present Marisol De La Torre Escobedo as the nominee for vice chair. Would you like to make a statement?
Yeah, and for my statement, I actually have a story to share. So last week, my daughter was looking through my slide deck on my lesson on women's suffrage. And we were highlighting, key individuals, Sojourner Truth, Ida B. Wells, Alice Paul, and so forth. And we had this conversation on, this group of very determined women to, gain the right to vote and their service to their community and so forth. So when I joined the commission, my kids were toddlers and my daughter's now in 4th grade. So before the commission meeting, I was doing my required reading, and she tells me, you tell your determined group of women to help Maestra with induction. So her teacher's currently working on induction. And I told her, I'm like, well, this group in Sacramento, it's a lot more than just this determined group of women. There are a lot of other people at the table and so forth. But I think that really, sums up this commission just in terms of our determination to get things right for our students, teachers, and our state. And it's just an honor to serve alongside all of you.
Thank you very much. I will now open the election for vice chair. Do I have a motion to elect Commissioner De La Torre Escobedo as the vice chair of the commission for 2022? Moved by Commissioner Martinez. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Cardenas. Will the recording secretary please call for the vote?
Jose Cardenas,
Aye.
C. Michael Cooney,
Aye.
Michael De La Torre,
Aye.
Marisol De La Torre Escobedo,
Aye.
Megan Gross,
Aye.
Johanna Howick,
Aye.
Susan Aradia,
Aye.
Terry Jackson,
Aye.
Bonnie Clark,
Aye.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
David Simmons,
Aye.
Tina Sloan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Commissioners and educational partners, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Tina Sloan as the chair and Marisol De La Torre Escobedo as the vice chair of the Commission on Teacher Credentialing for 2022. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Executive Director Sandy. All right, I will now recess the general session and move to the Educator Preparation Committee. Commissioner Martinez, will you please reconvene the committee?
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, Marisol and Tina, for your service. I also want to thank everyone who joined yesterday. I think we had like over 150 at one point. I forgot to thank folks who joined us for a very long Educator Preparation Committee session. So today I'd like to reconvene the Educator Preparation Committee. We have one remaining item this morning. Today we'll take on item 2G, which is institutional approval, stage 5, consideration of full institutional approval for Burton School District. This item is being presented by Gay Robbie. This is an action item. Ms. Robbie, will you please begin?
Thank you very much, Commissioner Martinez. And we hope to be our short, quick, final agenda item. Good morning, Commissioners, Director Sandy, and the rest of the CTC staff. I would like to begin by noting that we are joined by 3 administrators from the Burton School District, Debbie Estrada, who is the Executive Director of HR, the Director of HR, Treasurer Weisenberger, and the Human Resources Coordinator, Dr. Alexandria Aiello. And all of us are available for any questions, should you have any, at the end of the presentation. This agenda item presents the Board of Institutional Review's report from a provisional site visit for Burton School District, and also includes the Committee on Accreditation's recommendation for an accreditation decision for Burton School District. It is staff's recommendation that after reviewing the report and the Committee's Accreditation's recommendation, that the Commission grant Burton School District full institutional approval. On page 3 of this agenda item, you will find what's becoming a very familiar chart for you. It is the comprehensive table of the initial institutional approval process that qualifies a new institution to sponsor an education preparation program. Reading from left to right, this multi-step process began for Burton in 2016 by first being required to demonstrate they are eligible to sponsor a program and indeed have the capacity to do so. After confirming that capacity to sponsor a program, and written narratives demonstrated their understanding of preconditions, common standards, and program standards, Burton School District was granted permission to start their teacher induction program in November of 2018. Burton offered their program for over 2 years and collecting ongoing data about their implementation before hosting a provisional site visit in October of 2021. A team of 3 trained peer reviewers held a virtual visit on October 11th through the 13th, following all protocols outlined in the accreditation handbook. The review confirmed the district offers a strong teacher induction program, and they produced many supportive and satisfied stakeholders who corroborated the district's documentation. The team submitted a report of their findings in regards to each of the standards and an accreditation recommendation to the Committee on Accreditation at their October 28th meeting. And you will find a copy of that report attached to today's item as Appendix A. And it is important to note that all standards were found met. The COA agreed with the team recommendation and confirmed that if Burton School District were a fully accredited institution and the site visit report resulted from a regularly scheduled Year 6 site visit, then the Committees on Accreditation's decision would be to accept the recommendation from the team of accreditation. On page 5 of the agenda item are the 4 choices the Commission has in regards to the petition of Burton School District to sponsor an educator preparation program of teacher induction. However, based on all the information gathered since 2016, the staff recommends that the Commission grant full approval to Burton School District. Should the commissioners have any questions, both the district representatives and I will be here and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Robbie. We'll now open for public comment. If there are members of the public that would like to give a presentation, please notify the meeting moderator by clicking on the raised hand icon if participating through Zoom, or pressing *9 if participating by phone. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
We do not have any public comments on this item.
Thank you so much. The public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Just raise your virtual hand. Okay. Commissioner Klatt and then Commissioner Sloan.
Good morning, and thank you for being here. The report, you had glowing reviews from your participants, and so I wanted to commend you on that. And I wanted to ask a question about your mentors. So it looks like the report says you have 21 mentors, full-time and part-time. And one of the interesting comments I thought was one of the participants said that their mentor was at their beck and call, and that they felt very well supported, that their mentors were there whenever they needed them, which is wonderful. My question then is kind of looking at it from the mentor's position. How are the mentors able to be available? Are they employed full-time as mentors? Do they still have teaching assignments? So could you explain a little bit more the day of the mentor? Is that full-time mentor?
Sure. We have a mix of both. Full-time mentors that are their designated position is to be a site mentor for both new and veteran teachers at the site, and they also have applied to be induction mentors. And so those, we have 9 sites, and so we have 9 full-time mentors. So those mentors are much more readily available throughout the day as their schedule is a little bit more flexible. And we also have full-time classroom teachers that are also mentors for induction, and they meet, but we do try to match them at the same site and grade level. So they have the same grade level planning time and prep time, and then after school hours as well. So it's a mix.
Okay, thank you. And I really do appreciate the effort to make the planning time the same, because that can be such a challenge to try to make those meetings happen before or after school. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Klatt. We're going to go over to Chair Sloan, and then Commissioner Francois, and Commissioner Heredia, and then Commissioner Grenoshire.
I don't need to speak, actually.
Oh, okay. All right. Commissioner Francois.
Good morning. I want to thank the team for this presentation. And Ms. Roby, you're right. The consistency of the presentations make it so easy to read. Thank you so much. I have a question about the two common standards, the substandards that were met inconsistently. Two of the three have to do with diversity and excellence. And I'm wondering, I can guess, but I'm wondering if the team could talk us through the challenges of diversity in terms of hiring and retention, and what their thoughts are about how they might address that in the future.
Yes. So it is something we're still working on, but something we've improved over the last few years. We have a couple of new dual immersion programs in our district. We already had one and we've added 2 more. So we're recruiting faculty who are bilingual. And then, of course, we still have a lot of growth in this area. And so we've recently partnered with 2 of our local universities. One is a community college and one is a 4-year institution. We've invited them to be on our advisory board. And so we're hoping that they can help us recruit diverse faculty that, of course, represents our student population. And then just taking this to our advisory team, our ADS data, and just getting ideas on ways we can reach out to the community and continue to diverse recruit faculty is our plan right now and what we're working on.
May I ask a follow-up question, Commissioner Martinez?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you for that. I think it's a really smart move to include the institutions of higher education to help with diversification. I'm wondering if was this a similar challenge when your district was part of the Tulare County induction program, or is this new?
I think it was similar. I think right now, just looking at our data, we have, actually have it pulled up. We have 100 Hispanic teachers and 126 non-Hispanic teachers. So most of our population, of our student population, is highly Hispanic, and as well as bilingual students. And so we feel that we've closed the gap a little bit further, but something we're still working on. So I think it's ongoing.
Thank you. Thanks to you for your attention to that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for the question and thank you for that, Ms. Weisenberger. Commissioner Gardner-Shire, or no, Commissioner Heredia.
My question was answered.
Wonderful. Okay, Commissioner Gardner-Shire.
Commissioner Francois took the question right out of my head, but I want to just explore a little bit more. I also want to commend the staff that is here from Burton School District. Good for you on such a strong report and the findings. I really appreciate you talking about outreaching to your community college partners, because we know that those grow your own programs are really, really effective at recruiting and retaining diverse teachers for our schools. Can you talk a little bit more about any efforts that you might have?
Regarding recruitment or outside of the community college? Yeah.
And what you're doing with your community college partners.
Okay. So what we've done is we have invited one of the local, some representatives from the local community college in Visalia, College of the Sequoias, to be part of our advisory board meeting for our induction program. And so one of the people, one of her jobs is diversity and outreach for that college. And so she is looking at multiple pathways of different businesses and educational opportunities, recruiting people that want to be future teachers and then making that connection with our district. So really that pipeline of keeping the local college age students in our Central Valley and hiring them back to work for us is our goal.
Thank you. I wish you the best with your efforts.
Thank you.
Commissioner Simmons and then Commissioner Gross.
Over the last year and a half during the pandemic, we've been asking induction programs to do things that are really beyond the standards and beyond what induction programs have had to do for many years. How are you, and it's outside the standard, so it wouldn't affect our judgment. But I wanted to, since you're here, I wanted your opinion on how that you've been able to address that in terms of supporting people through RICA, supporting people through TPA.
Yes, so that's been, one of the big challenges of all induction programs is now taking that on. And so we are holding office hours for our candidates for support. We use the platform of Canvas for our program. And so loading up with resources on study guides for TPA RICA, the rubrics for TPAs, just allowing our candidates lots of resources. We have partnered with the Tulare County Office of Education for what they're doing with their candidates. They've shared resources with us since we're a smaller program, and we really appreciate that. So really just being there for our candidates and making sure they know to come to us for help and assistance. And we've had to grow our knowledge in TPA and RICA, which has been exciting for us too. And then one of the things after we attended the induction conference this week is really finding ways to look out for the emotional well-being of our candidates. So we're excited to start adding some things in our meetings just for them to reflect on their stress level and see how we can help them, because we know they're doing both induction and a lot of our candidates have TPA and RICA or one or the other to pass.
Thank you both. Commissioner Gross.
Well, Commissioner Simmons asked my question about induction. So I don't have a question now, but I would like to commend you on your customized professional development for candidates that's highlighted in the report, and that your mentor teachers are able to make connections and get folks the just-in-time PD that they need. I think that's such a struggle in our system often, and often teachers report, they're kind of going to cookie-cutter professional development. So it's really nice to see that in your report that you're really customizing those opportunities, and also providing those opportunities for your mentors with kind of intense instructional coaching training. So I just wanted to commend you on that, because I think that's something the field has tried to continue to move forward to, and you're presenting a nice example of that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gross. It sounds like many of the commission's questions are all around the same topic, so we're all thinking alike this morning. Any other questions? This is an action item, so any other discussion before we move to a motion? Okay, I don't see any. So this is an action item. We have 4 options before us. They're listed on page 5 of the item. They are grant full institutional approval to Burton School District, grant full institutional approval and remand back to COA to address the stipulations identified in the site visit, continue provisional approval status for 1 year to address stipulations identified, or deny full institutional approval. As a reminder, the recommendation from staff is to grant full approval and remand the institution back to the COA to address the stipulations. So the recommendation from staff, grant full approval and remand the institution back to COA to address the stipulations. That's the recommendation. Do I have a motion for any of the 4 options that I provided above? Okay. Oh, it looks like Ms. Hickey has a question.
Sorry about that. I thought I heard that the recommendation was to remand back to the COA for stipulations, and I don't believe in this case there are any stipulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hickey. I know I had to read it twice because, did I read that correctly?
Thank you. That must have been an error.
Okay, so Ms. Hickey, thank you so much. So the recommendation from staff is grant full approval, correct? Ms. Hickey?
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, correct.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate that clarification. Okay, so do I have a motion? Okay, see now, great. Thank you for Ms. Hickey, that recommendation, because now we have some motions here. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, I move full approval.
Great, thank you. And Commissioner Klatt?
I second that motion.
Okay, thank you for those who raised their hands for a motion. So I have a motion by Commissioner Jackson to grant full approval, and I have a second by Commissioner Grant to grant full approval. Further discussion from anyone? Okay. We're ready for a vote then. So will the recording secretary call for the vote? Each member please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
Jose Cardenas.
Aye.
C. Michael Cooney.
Aye.
Michael De La Torre,
Aye.
Marisol De La Torre Escobedo,
Aye.
Megan Gross,
Aye.
Johanna Howard,
Aye.
Susan Aradia,
Aye.
Harry Jackson,
Aye.
Bonnie Clark,
Aye.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
David Simmons,
Aye.
Tina Sloan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Robbie, and for others. And thank you, Ms. Hickey, for jumping in and clarifying our motion. Having no additional items, I adjourn the Educator Preparation Committee and want to thank all of you again for your perseverance yesterday and the deep thought that went into all the discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner Martinez, and thank you for running such a very long committee meeting yesterday and this morning. With your bright, chipper presence, it's always a pleasure. Next, we have the Professional Practices Committee. Commissioner Cooney, will you please convene the committee?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I now convene the Professional Practices Committee. We will announce when the public comment period is open following the presentation of each agenda item. Members of the public who wish to comment will be asked to notify the meeting moderator of the following ways. Individuals who join the meeting via the Zoom webcast will need to click on the raise hand icon to inform the meeting moderator that they would like to speak on the item. The meeting moderator will notify the individual when it is their turn to speak by calling their Zoom ID. Please remember that the Zoom ID is the name used when logging into the meeting. At that time, the individual will be prompted to unmute their microphone and will be able to share their comment. Individuals who join the meeting via US toll-free number will need to press *9 on their phone to inform the meeting moderator that they would like to speak on the item. The meeting moderator will notify the individual when it is their turn to speak by calling out the last 4 digits of their phone number and will allow them to unmute their telephone. At that time, the individual will be prompted to press *6 and will be able to share their comment. Item 3A is the Division of Professional Practices Workload Report. This is the only item on the committee's agenda today. It will be presented as usual by Mr. Gil Gonzalez, the chair, the head of the Division of Professional Practices. Mr. Gonzalez.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'll be presenting item 3A, the DPP Monthly Workload Report. The Commission's dashboard reports on 6 key measures in line graph form, showing both current year numbers as well as prior numbers for comparison purposes. The following numbers reflect the October 2021 totals. The number of total cases open within DPP for the month of October was 2,201. The total number of cases that seem to have leveled off in the 2,000 to 2,200 range since COVID began, but is still below the normal range of 26 to 2,800 pre-COVID. Cases open are generated from reports of misconduct received during the month from all sources, including criminal arrest notices, school district reports, affidavits, and educators who self-report misconduct. In October, staff opened 436 cases, which is within the normal range of the 400 to 500 cases we've opened in the past, most of which is related to an increase of applications. The next 2 graphs are the initial review and the formal review graphs, which reflect the number of cases reviewed by the Committee of Credentials during its normal 3-day meeting, which is required by statute. As I previously stated, the COC is reviewing fewer initial review cases due to the decline of the overall caseload. As the overall caseloads increase, we will begin to increase the number of initial review cases reviewed per month. In October, staff closed 338 cases. These are cases closed by commission action, committee action, or closed by staff with the commission, where the commission has given formal delegation of authority. The normal pre-COVID range, if cases closed, is in the 400 to 500 cases. So this is still below that average. AG cases is the last graph and refers to cases in which an educator requests an administrative hearing to challenge the recommendation for discipline made by the committee. The commission is represented in these hearings by the Office of Attorney General. As of October, there were 155 cases assigned to the AG's office. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Before we, thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Before we turn to members of the commission for questions, this is the time when we open for public comment. And if there are members of the public who would like to give a presentation, please notify the meeting moderator by clicking on the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom, or pressing *9 if participating by phone. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
We do not have any public comments on this item.
Thank you very much. The public comment period for this item is now closed. All right, commissioners, this is now open for your comments, questions, concerns. I'm not seeing the raised hands. So if you—
Commissioner Cooney, we do have two raised hands, Commissioner De La Torre and Commissioner Klatt.
Okay, perfect. We'll start with Commissioner De La Torre.
Thank you. I just have a question. Thank you for the report. It's very clear, easy to read. I had a question about the, I see that the case, when the numbers vary and go down, do we know if the total number of teachers in the state has gone up or down from one year to the next?
Actually, I really don't know those totals. I think we've always been in the 300,000 range. Mary?
I think we've seen some increase. We're just over 300,000, but we use 300,000 as a rough rule of thumb as to the number of teachers that are currently serving. It may be as high as 310,000, give or take.
Thank you.
Commissioner Klatt.
Well, first of all, thank you, staff, as always, for this report. It's very informative. And I think I just wanted to express, I know a lot of people voiced their appreciation for Commissioner Cooney yesterday, but I think it didn't really hit me until just now hearing you present this item, that you won't be here to present this item next time. So I just wanted to thank you for your leadership in closed session and for your leadership and guidance in many of these cases, and for presenting this item. This item won't be the same next time without you. And I know we've all said it, but I just wanted to add that I will miss you at this table. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Klatt. I am just one of the commissioners who is concerned with this aspect of the commission's business, and very much appreciate all the commissioners paying attention to this. And of course, our real work is done behind closed doors, but these reports are very important. I know you've heard this story, all of you, that years ago, when I came on the commission, there was a dark cloud over the commission in terms of its reputation, and the question was raised as high as the governor's office: was the commission really doing its job to protect the children in our students and in our schools? And as a result of that, a number of commissioners left the commission. There were changes in various other staff positions, and then later that same year, the commission elected Mary Sandy as our chair, and immediately began a period of increasing confidence in the commission's work, all served by commissioners who were appointed, as well as our liaisons. And we've reached this stage today where our chair could say, this is a very strong commission. And the people of California, the students of California, and teachers are well served by this commission. It's been an honor to be a part of it. And I know that all of you will pick up the mantle of staying in tune with the committee of credentials, because they serve such a vital role. Some of you might even have time to sit in on one of their meetings to really understand how hard they're working. Our former commissioner, Kevin Kung, is now chair of the committee, and he will do a great job in that position. So thank you all. Very much appreciated. This adjourns the meeting.
Commissioner Cooney, we have one more commissioner with our hand up, Commissioner Hartwig.
Oh, great.
Okay, Commissioner Cooney, you can't escape before I also offer my thanks and admiration. You know, I have heard the history of the dark cloud that was surrounding the commission, particularly related to discipline work when you joined. And I think you definitely deserve credit as one of the actors who helped disperse that cloud. So thank you so much for your over 10 years of service, and for especially for your very close work with the Division of Professional Practices. I really appreciate it. I just had one question from Mr. Gonzalez, and this is a question I ask frequently, but I think it's just very important to make sure that the commission is updated about this. And this is to make sure that you feel confident about your staffing levels to be able to maintain the processing times that you have, the excellent processing times that you have been able to achieve. I know that we are still, you know, within the range of cases opened, and yet I do note that, you know, there's a significant increase between September and October in terms of number of cases, to see that you feel confident about your division's ability to maintain its level of processing.
Well, we have had a slight turnover in our intake unit of staff, but we're hiring as quickly as possible, of course, and we've always have a plan for that. In terms of other staff backing up and assisting where it's needed. Luckily, right now, the caseload has been lower, so that's been helpful to us. Had it been the regular amount of cases, it might have been a bigger problem, but just something we can handle it right now. So I'll feel a lot more comfortable once we hire those other individuals and get those positions filled. But I think we're fine right now.
Okay, thank you for that. And again, thanks to you and your team and the Committee on Credentials for all the incredible work that you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Hartwig, you raised a point that we need to keep an eye on, and that is to make sure that the size and quality of our staff is continued as it has been under Mr. Gonzalez, and prior to him under our legal counsel and legal staff, Vanessa Whitnell. Ms. Whitnell and her job for us during the time that I've been on the commission was invariable in the quality of her representation and advice to us. And I know many times I leaned on her for information about the legal process in which the commission is involved on behalf of us. And she and her staff are really the mainstay of that part of the commission. I want to mention Katie Elliott only because I know she is right next to Vanessa and ready to answer every question that Vanessa can't on the spot. So really an excellent legal staff, an excellent professional practices staff, the investigators intake. It's terrific under Mr. Gonzalez. So I feel very, very comfortable at this point with this aspect of the commission's work. Any other commissioners with comments regarding the professional practices committee report? I'm not seeing any this time. So this does in fact adjourn the business of the professional practices committee for this meeting. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Cooney. All right, then I would like to reconvene the general session and move to item 1H, strategic plan update. Director Sandy, will you please begin? Oh, you are muted.
Sorry. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. It is exciting to have yet another opportunity to dig into kind of the fundamentals, the base structure of our strategy for conducting the work of the Commission. It's been a very good series of sessions that we've had over the last year and a half, and this process really began in 2020, just because the pandemic wasn't enough for us. We thought, why don't we do strategic planning too? And in truth, there's the whole pandemic and all of the ways in which the Commission has had to adjust its work and its requirements, and to really dig in with our educational partners, with the candidates seeking entry, seeking exit from programs. In many ways just churned up the soil. It's like tilling the soil in your garden and then, figuring out where the rows go and what you're going to plant next. That's the strategic planning part that comes with this kind of upheaval. So as challenging as it's been to manage both an uncertain and variable workload that was interrupted by the last 2 years of COVID, it's also been a time that gives us a different vantage point for looking at the work we do. And how we do it and who we do it with. So I have really valued each of the times we've been able to pull our team together with you and go deep. And this morning provides us just such an opportunity. The first thing we did in 2020 to get this process started was an environmental scan. We invited our educational partners in the field to consider with us, what is the mission of the Commission? What are we doing well? What areas of policy should we maybe consider, and practice should we consider retiring, updating, or have we not yet considered? And that was a very rich amount of feedback that came back to us in 2020, that we got a high-level overview in the October Commission meeting. Then we did a deep dive last December, where we really engaged in small groups with what are our educational partners telling us about the work we do and how we're doing. The messages were very good and very confirming. The feedback that we received, some of it was critical, but I view it as critical friend feedback and not as critique with the intent to shame or harm us. I really felt like this was a very productive session for us to hear from the communities of interest that really follow and participate in the work with us. And that session then led us to our April session, where the Commission itself took a look again at our vision, mission, values, and goals, and broke into small groups and began to consider what's missing from the vision statement, what's from our mission statement, from the values statements, from the goals, what needs to be retired here. And we got a lot of very good feedback from commissioners about that, some of which is summarized at a high level again in this agenda item that was presented. It was posted this week. And this document is really a resource for you to draw from as we engage in today's set of activities. It includes links to all of our prior meetings, to the various agenda items and stakeholder feedback that we've received. Excuse me, I am changing my language from stakeholder to educational partner. Please bear with me as I make that happen. On page 1, we describe again the mandate and move into what are our major buckets of work. We summarize for you in this item some findings and recommendations from our educational partners from the environmental scan that we did. We also provide some summary for you of the conversations you had in April to set the stage for today's discussion. We are really looking forward to having this block of time to dig in and see how far we get and how far we've gotten and what we're ready to start maybe committing to in terms of language and frame for the work. Madam Chair, I'd like to invite you to join me in framing your hopes and expectations for this morning, and then we can turn it over to Amy, who will begin the PowerPoint and take us through the process.
Thank you, Director Sandy. My only 2 comments that I would add to this is to emphasize Director Sandy has talked to me many times about the ways in which our former strategic plan guides her work. Like, she literally looks at it often. And it's something that I've always kept in mind as I've been thinking with her and staff and you about what we want this document and plan to look like for our work in the commission and as a guidepost for Director Sandy. The second thing is that the complexities of gathering all of our thoughts, gathering all of our education partners' thoughts is complex. And staff have done a tremendous job of culling and summarizing and putting together text that we can work with. So we have a there to work with. That said, this is not to suggest that this is the text. This is just to give us something to work with, much like a sacrificial draft. So I want you to think of it as here's what we at least have a there. And it is up to us to shape it the way we want it to be shaped. So I think those would be the 2 things I would say. There is a conceptual framework that we have sort of also developed to work from, but I'll wait until we get there with the slides. Yeah? Okay. All right. Thank you.
So I think at this point, we'd like to turn it over to Chief Deputy Director Amy Rising and her team, who will facilitate the strategic planning session and run slides for us. Thank you.
Great. Well, good morning, commissioners. Great to be back with you. Happy Friday to everyone, and welcome to the public. We will get started. We do have a PowerPoint that will help guide us as we are all together in the whole group session. And we will be moving fairly quickly into small breakout groups so we can really dig in together with commission staff and commissioners and the public that will join us in those rooms. And then we will come back together as a whole group to summarize our thinking in the small groups and share highlights from our conversations. And we will be gathering all of your feedback and notes and things like that, so the work can inform us as we move forward. So again, welcome, and we are going to go ahead and begin. We're going to move to the next slide. The framing has been provided. I'm going to walk quickly with you now through the agenda. We're going to touch on some norms. We use norms whenever we're working with groups online. We, a year and a half or so ago, quickly moved most of our work into an online space and quickly realized that setting a few norms up front is always a helpful thing. So we will start there. We will come back and just touch on a few components of the item, but really going to do this at a very high level because it is in your breakout groups that you will have a chance to read more closely, to look at the important aspects and links, as Mary pointed out, that are in this item, particularly Appendix B, that provides past data that we've gathered to inform your conversations this morning. Then what we have done is structured the next several hours into sort of three components with three different focus areas. In the first discussion, we will focus on the strategic plan framework itself and the graphic that's provided in the item. We will have that conversation for about 45 minutes or so. We'll take a quick break, stretch break. It's always important when we're working online with Zoom to walk away from the computer and stretch and rest your eyes. Then we'll come back into our second discussion and really look closely at the vision, mission, and value statements that are included in this item and in prior work, and get your feedback on these important statements. And then finally, in the third breakout discussion group, after a break between after two, we will come back and really tackle the conversation that we've been having throughout the last 2 days around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how the Commission might be using data to inform its decision-making as we go forward into the next many years. So as we do all of that work, we will have a process in place. Commission staff will be facilitating and note-taking for you, and we will be coming back then to a whole group. We will be asking you to highlight your thinking in some slides, and we will have those slides ready for you when we come back to the whole group, and a commissioner from each group will share those highlights with each other so that we can kind of have a cross discussion at that point. And then Tina and Mary and myself, we will close the item and explain next steps for the strategic plan. So thank you, James. We're going to go to the next slide, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, James Webb. He will be our producer today in helping with moving us in and around and with our materials. James?
Thank you, Amy. So as Amy said, we would like to talk about our norms so that we can maximize our work today. And so here are some 5 overarching norms with regard to our conversations with each other. That is to listen, to understand, to learn, and to share meaning with each other. Demonstrating mutual respect for everyone's perspective. Everyone brings a lot of different ideas to the table. We want to make sure that we honor all perspectives. Be open to possibilities, perhaps stretch your mind a little bit to maybe consider something you had not thought about in the past. Ask those questions that lead to understanding, lead to deeper thinking and thoughts around this, the various topics today. And then finally, we always like to remind everyone that we always want to act in the best interest of our birth through 22 students in California, knowing that all students means all students. So as long as we act in their best interests, we are always framing and producing the best work that we can. In terms of working online, we have a few norms here. The first one is to make sure that you are muted. However, there may be times when you are in breakout rooms that you may need to unmute yourself, but please allow yourself to remain muted so that we reduce the background noise. We do want you to be mindful of your questions and participation so that we allow for all voices to be heard in the room so that everyone has a chance to speak. We do ask that you avoid multitasking so that every topic gets the full consideration that it deserves. We are discussing a number of important topics here, and we want to make sure that all information is presented. We will honor the time for attendees by moderating our participation so that we have a definitive start time and end time. And as Amy said, Zoom fatigue is a real issue. So please give your eyes a break from time to time by looking away from the screen, perhaps turning your chair for a few seconds. All of these things can ensure a better way to fully participate. Another piece that we would like to share with you is that we are using a Padlet in order to be able to maximize a number of different conversations. I'm going to put that Padlet into the chat as Amy goes through the next slide. But the Padlet is a open and public place where you can add ideas. And so I will put that into the chat, and we encourage both our commissioners and members of the public who may be joining us in a way to keep that conversation going as we consider the different topics. So Amy, I will turn it back to you.
Well, thank you, James. And I'm going to turn this slide back to Mary, who's going to walk us through our mandate, and then we will continue on. Mary?
Thank you, Amy and James. So we remind you of these each time we sit together to think about our strategic plan, because there are many things we could do, but we are bounded by statute and by the expectations that the government has put before the agency. There are things that we are specifically called to do, and keeping these as kind of a boundary for our strategic planning is necessary. So the primary responsibilities as framed in statute include setting standards for the preparation of the workforce, accrediting educator preparation programs and supporting the work on the Committee of Accreditation, developing and maintaining educator examinations and performance assessments, issuing credentials, licensing California educators, and monitoring educator assignments, monitoring and addressing educator misconduct and supporting the work of the Committee of Credentials, managing teacher recruitment and development grants, and finally, reporting to the public and policy community on an array of teacher supply and credentialing issues. These 7 topics really organize and frame the work that you do. And in fact, in this very meeting, I think we've covered all 7 of these bases in one way or another. So this is kind of the primary source material for us to think about what our vision, mission, values, and strategic goals will be. Next slide. In the course of our time together, Chair Sloan and Amy Rising and I have had conversations and tried to think conceptually about how the strategic plan comes together. I'd like to turn it over to Chair Sloan to describe this particular diagram and how it might add meaning and help us make meaning together in the strategic planning process. Chair Sloan?
So we were thinking about how we could represent all of the areas of our work and the processes and practices that we want to engage in with our work. The strategic plan, if you recall, or you will see, had these sort of 3 big buckets of work listed, and then it had topics underneath about, describing what the work is. And it wasn't a good representation, we thought, about of the nature of the work, because the work overlaps in these 3 buckets. So in the center there of the diagram, you have, these are our 3 main areas of work in our mandate, right? The program development, where we are setting standards and we do accreditation, we manage grants. Then we have the educator quality. I'm not sure if that's the best term, if you all have something different. That is, again, please, this is for revision. So this is where we're setting standards, TPEs, all of those sorts of things around what we expect our educators to know and be able to do, examinations, assessments, how they demonstrate that. And then the 3rd bucket is the licensure, certification, and discipline. So the work and the processes and how we conduct our work will overlap in those. All of this work now we see taking place in the larger frame of what we have been talking about, that we want, as we move into 2022 and beyond, to be sure that our work is informed more by data and evidence. We have much more data and evidence to work from now, and we're continuing to build that. And then we also want to be sure that we are keeping equity and justice and issues of diversity and inclusion at the center of our work, but also it's the overlay. I mean, this is why our work is situated in this conceptual diagram within these practices of informed by data and advancing equity, justice, diversity, inclusion. So that's, at this moment, how we're conceptualizing that. The commission also, beyond this circle, beyond its walls, to the field, There were many things that we as commissioners thought the commission can do, does do, should do, as well as our education partners. And that is provide leadership in our field, engage our education partners in our work, be transparent in our work, communicate continuously, two-way communication with our constituencies and our partners, and that we situate and are always thinking about continuous improvement, just as we talked about yesterday in one of our items. So these were sort of the elements of our engagement with the field that also shapes our practice and that shapes the field. And that's why it's sort of in this conceptual diagram looks this way. Now, this is again for our scrutiny and feedback, and we'd love to see whether it works or not and what edits might help understand our conceptual frame for what our work is at the commission and what is going to guide our work in the strategic plan. I'll hand it back over to you, Mary.
Thank you. Next slide, James. The conceptual framework will be part of your first breakout session, and digging in around that and discussing it will be part of your first breakout session. In your second breakout session, we are going to invite you to look again at the vision, mission, and value statements. And the agenda item as posted provides some background, as I said, where our stakeholders, where our education partners were making recommendations, and then what you were making of that when you met and did a deep dive last April. So what we've crafted for you as a team is some working statements that you can work from. So commissioners, this slide actually identifies things that surfaced in your discussion about our vision needing to include a commitment to advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion, attending to the whole population of educators, not just those entering the workforce, the idea of a diverse and representative workforce that's reflective of our student body, the focus on the whole child, including the preschool through grade 12 and beyond space, calling out specifically cultural preparedness and defining highest potential, at least understanding that when we think about children and teachers helping students to reach their highest potential, we include social emotional health as well as academic achievement. Next slide, please. So there are 3 different draft vision statements offered for you for your consideration in your second breakout session. The boldface text at the top of this slide really describe what a vision should do for an organization. A vision statement in a strategic plan describes what an organization aspires to. What do we aspire to as an organization? It provides a definition of where we think we're going and our commitment to making bold progress in a particular direction. Again, bounded within our statutory mandate. We can't go just anywhere. As a Commission on Teacher Credentialing, we have to live within the space that's been created for us in statute. But within that, what is our vision? Next slide, please. We similarly with the mission statement, and we've identified some of the big themes that came out of your conversations. Again, that the mission should include a focus directly on equity, inclusion, and diversity. That we ought to consider the order of terms, language being as important. That's been a big theme in our conversations in the last 2 days. And that our mission statement should incorporate new work around teacher recruitment and grant management. Next slide, please. So again, a mission statement should summarize at the highest level why an organization exists. Everything we do should contribute to our ability to achieve the mission. We have 2 draft mission statements for your editing and for you to chew on in small groups and to determine, have we caught it and what are we missing? And so that will be part of group 2. Moving to the next slide, the values section. Next slide, please. We include for you what your current value statements are. But again, the values in a strategic plan express kind of core beliefs and commitments that are shared among commissioners and staff that drive our culture and our priorities and provide a framework in which decisions are made and work is carried out. In your discussions in April, a recurring theme was that our values are, as we frame them, we do value these things as they're framed in the current strategic plan, but they lack an action orientation. So we took that as a charge to see if we could find more active language and a more active way of expressing what your values are. And borrowed a format from the Ontario College of Teachers in Ontario, Canada. And I've looked to them before as we were thinking about strategic planning. They've done some good work in that vein. But the way they've structured it and the way we've offered this as a sample for you to consider is to make your values statements basically commitments the commission commits to. And here are a series of things that we put out here for you to chew on. Advancing equity, we commit to advancing equity, inclusion, and diversity in standards, program practices, people in the workplace. We commit to recognizing and promoting excellence. We commit to the use of data to inform and direct decision-making. We commit to engaging meaningfully with educational partners. We got to change that slide, friends, in the development of our work. We commit to listen to the voices and ideas of educators, parents, guardians, students, our partners, drop the word stakeholders, and employees as we conduct the business of the commission. We commit to innovate as we transform our vision into reality. There we go. So basically we've given you that meat for your second session to engage with, determine whether you like this way of framing your values and what's missing, what needs to go away. So next slide, please. And I think at this point, I'm going to turn it back over to James and Amy, to Amy to take this on and describe what we're going to do next.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mary. And yes, we will go back and make sure that we let go of that word stakeholder. So in our groups going forward, just a bit of process organization here. We would like, when you move into your breakout room, as you start your first discussion, to have some time independently to refresh your mind and focus your mind on the topic. So you'll have some time to do some independent review of the documents and to go into those links if you so desire to remind yourself of what we have covered to date. And then your facilitators in your room, each room will have at least 3 commission facilitators there to help with the discussion and answer questions and take notes. So there will be a 20 to 30 minute or longer, depending on your group's needs, discussion. And at the end of that discussion, there will be a summary opportunity to sort of identify some highlights from your discussion that you would like to bring back for the whole group to think about together. And if one of you would be so kind as to agree to be the person sharing those highlights, that will be captured on a slide for you. So this is the process that we will use in each of our breakout sessions. And we will have 3 opportunities to sort of chunk the item and get into different aspects of our strategic plan. But I do want you to know that we will plan to take our first 2 discussions in our small groups and then come back and share our findings from those first 2 discussions right before lunch. Then we will take a lunch break, and then we will come back and have our 3rd discussion, and then a final summary at the end. So that is how our morning will roll out. And we'll go to the next slide, which shows the breakout groups. So again, 4 groups, and you can see in green your commission facilitators. When you do go into your room, you will pause and do a little bit of introductions at that point, so I won't be doing that right now. And then, of course, I want to speak to our friends from the public who are joining us. You are going to be put into a room, and you are welcome to observe and listen. At the very end of this item today, there will be a public comment opportunity. So if you do have things you would like to comment on public, you will have that chance at the end of the session. We will be recording the small group breakout sessions also. Just want to let you know about that. So let's go to our next slide real quick. I'm just going to walk us a little bit into this first process. So our first prompt when James sends us off to our rooms is to read, analyze, and discuss the proposed conceptual framework to identify changes or to suggest amendments. And this is specifically offered for you on pages 4 and 5 of the item. And of course, there are lots of more opportunities to go into the links to see, as I said, our prior work, and you're welcome to do that in your breakout as well. So with that, James, I think we're going to go ahead and have you move us into our breakout spaces. So we will see all of you in small rooms and have an opportunity to talk this morning. So James, take us away.
I will, but I'd like to just issue a norm. When you are in your breakout rooms, you will be taking breaks with your facilitators. Just want to remind everyone that you can turn off your camera and your microphone and remain in your small breakout rooms. You do not need to come back to the main room in order to take a break. So just wanted to add that.
Thank you, James. I maybe didn't have all my coffee this morning. Did we already talk about the Padlet opportunity?
We did.
Great.
And our
Okay.
facilitators will review that as well when they are in their rooms.
All right. So we have lots of ways to gather information as to move through the morning. The Padlet is one of them, and all are welcome to add their thoughts there. Then notes will be taken from the session. We'll record the sessions and we'll have share out opportunities. So really looking forward to a rich conversation with all of you. And with that, James, why don't you take us into our rooms? You will have a little graphic that will come up on your slide and you will click on that and it will take you into your particular breakout room.
Okay, thank you, Amy. And I am.
James, I just thought maybe pause for just a second and see if any commissioners have questions before we go into breakout rooms.
Can we see the whole? Can we take the slides down now long enough to see the whole?
Yeah, we can go back to gallery.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
So for our 10 minutes of silent reading, will you all send us the link, or is it the one that's in our CTC portal?
The link is to agenda item. It's agenda item
Right.
1H.
So
Is that correct, Amy? Yes.
Yes, that is correct.
All right, thanks.
And when you get in your small breakout rooms, Monica, if you need anything at all, we will be happy to help you find it or put links into the chat for the breakout session.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And also to add, I will also be available. So if you need to request me to come into a room to assist with a technical issue, I am happy to do that as well.
It looks like we have 2 more hands raised.
Commissioner Simmons.
I am not seeing a chat. Is that a technical error on my part?
No, that is not. There is no chat for this main session. That feature has been disabled. However, when you are in your breakout rooms, there will be a chat there.
Any other questions before we go? All right, commissioners, have fun.
And with that, I am opening rooms. Please click on the room so that you can go into your small group and enjoy your time together.
Welcome back, everyone. We have lots to share out. Every single group was very engaged, very busy, very, very thoughtful in their work. Lots of notes were gathered and lots of thinking occurred. So great job to all. We are going to go ahead and move forward and do some sharing. So we're going to start with group 1 and just go down from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And we will start with our first group. Let them have a few minutes to share their highlights from their first and second discussion. As we go along, we'll try not to repeat ideas, but just say, I agree with the prior group, or we want to add this new idea to the thinking. And then at the end, we can have a group, we can have a minute or two to ask them a clarifying question, and then we'll move on to the group beyond that. So we're going to start with group 1. James is bringing up that slide. So whichever commissioner was willing to share their thinking for group one, please unmute and talk us through your slide.
All right. So this is Commissioner Jackson, and I'm the spokesperson for group one. So for the conceptual framework, these are our notes, and then we also changed the graphic a bit. So we moved the commission practice header out. Where commission practice was, we substituted role or mandate for that, for those inner circle, the mandates inside. Moved transparency inside the circle.
Terry, do you want me to show the conceptual?
Yes, yes, that would be great.
I'll show it.
And you'll get an idea of what these notes are referring to. All right, so you can see the changes, like where commission practice was on the inside, the darker blue, it's now sitting out as the title for the entire graphic. We took away if you go inside with the Venn diagram, we took away the subtitles that were in front with the colons, and we just simply had examinations and assessments, certification and discipline, standards and accreditation. We just left those, and those are our mandates. But we added in the center, just to center all of our work, effective, diverse, and learner-ready workforce. So we added that part in. You'll notice that transparency, which was on the outside with all of these other words, we moved that into the blue inside, along with informed by data and advancing equity and justice. And we gave the title, instead of commission practice, commitments in fulfilling our mandates. We took away the arrows that were outside, and we made the words on the outside action words. So lead, engage, innovate, communicate, evolve. So that's what we did with the framework.
All right, great. Thank you for sharing that. Any clarifying questions we could take maybe, and we're going to go on to your second.
Right.
Yeah, so if you don't mind to go on and talk about your second discussion. Did you cover everything? In other words, Terry, with
yes, we did cover everything.
All right.
So, yes.
Thank you. I didn't want to.
We just need to get to the slide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Fantastic. Well, thank you. Johanna has a clarifying question, it looks like. She's got her hand up. Go ahead and unmute. Somebody has to unmute Johanna. Who, James, is that you who's got control of this screen? Can you unmute Johanna, please?
Yes,
Great. Thank you, James.
There we go. Thank you.
Amy, would it all be possible for us to go through first, do the framework and then do the second? Because it's just hard for me, at least, to follow back and forth. Could we do that?
Absolutely. Great idea. So let's just talk about the framework and the graphic, and then we'll go back to our second.
And Amy, actually, I was going to say that, and Commissioner Hartwig, you beat me to it. That's how I set it up. I moved the slides around so that we do conceptual framework first, and then we move to the second portion. So we're now on group 2 for conceptual framework.
Fantastic. Thank you. And look at the colorful font they use. So who will be our presenter for group 2?
This is Commissioner Klatt. I will be speaking for group 2.
Thank you, Commissioner Klatt.
So we thought, it kind of like the previous group, putting something in the middle that was our focus, and our thought was having something about the whole child in the center somehow, and putting that as our that is the center. We also thought about kind of looking at the circles, the parts of the graphic, looking at the what, the how, and the why. And it seemed like the why was really the center. It was about supporting children. The what were the mandate parts, the circles, the overlapping circles, and the how were the arrows that went around the edges. And so by looking at it in that way, I think it kind of helped us make more sense of it, and it made us consider whether or not the data part should be in the middle. If the data driven part of it is more really the how we do it rather than the what or the why, and so pulling that out to the outside circle. It was brought up that we don't want to present too much educator speak, that trying to make the terms as concise as possible and as transparent as possible would be helpful. So we consider different ways we could reword some of the labels. And we also looked at the thought of collapsing the quality educator preparation to include the licensure in that, so that it's not just beginning brand new teachers, but also folding in teachers who are going back and getting additional certifications or authorizations. So it's not just the very brand new teacher that would be in part of that. And that would allow us to pull discipline out as its own domain. But we thought about, rather than using the term discipline, using something a little bit more positive, like ensuring student safety, to focus more on the what we're doing there, or the why we're doing it there. And because that's such a huge part of what we do, and it's not always forward to the public how much of our time and resource goes into that aspect of our work. And I think, did I miss? And I think that covers the main points that we discussed.
Great, thank you very much. And then moving on then to group 3.
So I'm going to represent group 3. We had a similar concern about like the general public being able to understand the document, if that's where this framework would be presented. So we kind of noted that as a bullet point. We felt that
I think.
Are we all back in the room?
Yeah, we all were just swooped into our breakout room somehow. So we're all back.
James, are we all back?
Yes, we should be. I would like to go on record as saying I did not touch a thing.
I was going to say, James, sit still and put your hands down. We're all back. Please continue. I apologize. Go ahead, Megan.
Could you put the screen back up? Thank you. So we felt the graphic accurately represented this theory of action. We felt the center demonstrated our scope of work within the commission, and it focuses on what our work should be and not maybe everything that we would want it to be. That's sometimes outside of our scope and purview. And commission is always so good at kind of gently reminding us of what our scope of work is. We had some concerns with the terminology, as mentioned earlier, about conceptual framework. Is that understandable? And then we like the word transparency, but it's not action oriented. Our suggested edits were to add educator to the top bubble that had program development. Consider using a different word than quality for educator quality. Move transparency to the blue space like the other groups did, and add a title to the graphic.
Great, thank you so much. We're going to move on to group 4, who's going to wrap up this summary.
Okay, hi everybody. I am Liaison Baez, and I will be speaking about what Group 4 talked about in regards to the conceptual framework. We did have a lot of the same thoughts as everybody, but we kind of wanted to deconstruct a little bit more. We talked about using the word reflection in addition to continuous improvement. eliminating the word discipline, and then perhaps substituting with one of the other words that you see on the screen, so support and intervention, encourage, or mentoring. Adding the word diversity and inclusion back to equity. Let's see, and then do we want to connect transparency with communication? So maybe linking those two things to represent one whole vision, I guess, or maybe one whole action word. So maybe connecting those two things. And then do we want to add advocacy as a part of our mandate? So something to think about there. And then assuring that we are purposeful in choice of language. We use some examples, educator quality, and the use of exams and assessments. So in that regard, is that our educator qualities a direct effect of exams and assessment, or is that how we represent them? And then purposeful in use of our graphics. So we kind of talked about maybe using a different structure. Are the arrows significant? Do they have a significance? Are they there for, looks, or is there a purpose to them? Are they directional? Are they supposed to be? Things of that regard. So design over substance is a concept that we felt needed to be addressed. And then placement of bubbles also needs to be strategic. So we kind of talked about structure in general.
Thank you. So James, perhaps you can just bring us back to the whole group for a second. So there were some common threads, yes, across the 4 presentations. A couple that really resonated with me, and I'm curious to hear others, what caught your attention and you heard. But one important one was, I think, that we need to be careful about a graphic and how we need to be purposeful in how we use it and be clear with our language for the audience, so that we don't get washed away with our own sort of education ease that we all fall into. So that was one thing that caught my attention. How about others? Any other patterns that you detected across our work that you feel strongly about and would like to mention real quick now before we make our next move? Anything that you heard that was the same across? How about anything that jumped out that was unique to your group's work? Anything that came to the surface that you all did not think of that another group did that you want to just point out before we summarize our discussion on framework and graphic?
One thing that I noticed from the first group that I really liked, and I think was noted elsewhere, was I did like for the outside section actually not to have it as a cycle, in that I don't think there's meant to be causality or a link in that way between each of them. So I liked having that as just a halo around it instead of a cycle. And I also liked, I think there was some change in the language in that first group's revision that I thought was effective. So I'm just noting that jumped out at me.
Great, thank you for sharing that. We definitely had that conversation in our group 4 as well. How about one last thought, and then we will move to our next. It's a lot to think about, isn't it? So we're going to go ahead and take our break for lunch now. And you're going to keep thinking, I'm sure, as you all get up and walk away and find some food and stretch your legs, rest your eyes. We will come back with your permission. I just kind of want to check in 30 minutes. Is that feel comfortable to come then back at 1 o'clock to pick up our work with our second discussion and a little bit of a summary activity, and then move on to our third discussion, which gets into DEI and data-driven work? We good? Thumbs up? Lunch break, 30 minutes. We're okay with that? Please do feel welcome to bring your food back. we're all friends and colleagues, and we can eat together. So I know 30 minutes isn't a lot of time sometimes. So please do take your break. We'll turn the cameras back on at 1 o'clock. Please don't turn off or jump out of here. Just close your camera, close your mute, and we will see you back here at 1 o'clock. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for coming back in such a timely way. We're going to give it another minute so that everyone can have a chance to rejoin us. We're going to start with sharing our highlights from our second conversation. So James, if you are queued up to help us with slides again, and those of you presenting, just hope you're ready. We're going to wait until Dr. Sandy rejoins us. Dr. Sloan. Just give it a minute.
I'm here, Amy.
Wonderful, fantastic. Thank you for coming back. And we're gonna start, as I assume Mary's in the room right next to me, and I'm gonna hear that she's ready
I'm
to go.
here.
She's ready to go. Then
I think we
let's
may
get
need to
started.
establish a quorum. Make sure we've got a quorum
Yes,
before we can begin.
exactly. Good. Yes, very good.
We
So
do
Haju,
have enough for
over to
quorum.
you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We do
Yes,
have enough
we
for
hear
quorum.
you, Haju. We have a quorum. Thank you. Amy, you are you ready to go?
Yeah, we are ready to go. And I think actually, Mary, you were going to turn it over to Michael Cooney. Commissioner Cooney.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a second to let everybody know I have to leave the meeting now, and I didn't want to do that without saying one last goodbye. Actually, it's not the last. It's just letting you know I won't be here for the rest of the meeting, but I want all of you to know how much I've appreciated all the support and remarks that you shared yesterday, and wish everyone the best during the holidays. And one urgent message is take care of this commission. It does important work. It's worth the effort. We have wonderful staff, terrific leadership. There's just nobody better that we could have running the commission than Tina, and running the commission's business than Mary. So with that, good meeting, good season, and we'll talk again in the future, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Bye, Michael.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, it's always so hard when someone has to go on, but I'm sure he has lots of adventures ahead of him, and we will miss him. So back to you, James, and the slides. And group one, who will present for group one?
That would be me again, Barry.
Great. Thank you. Thank you,
All right.
Commissioner Jackson. Thanks.
Yes. So for the vision, we landed on, we looked at the draft vision statements, and we were leaning more toward 2, but we had a lot of discussion about draft statement number 1 also. And we also want to bring in the thoughts that we saw on the Padlet. So you see the highlights from others that were here that we also thought kind of informed our discussion. And so we'll just leave that language there for you to see. And then also perhaps trying to add language in the vision statement that also is around justice, so that we're incorporating other groups such as the LGBTQ plus community. So I believe that's it for the vision.
Okay, thank you. Do you have another slide?
Yes.
On mission
there's
and
another
value? Okay.
Yes.
There we
Then,
go.
yes. Sorry about that. And then on the mission, again, we wanted to highlight this statement on the vision from one of our participants who was actually in our room, Adam. And also on this one, I believe we were leaning more toward the second draft, but also trying to work in, some language that we saw here in this draft mission statement. And then in terms of the values, we liked the way they were presented, the action-oriented approach to it and commitment. But we thought at the very beginning of the values where it had the statement of mission commits to, adding something about student interests and well-being in that opening statement. And we put kind of an example, putting students' interests and well-being first, comma, the commission commits to, and then all of the bullet points. We like those bullet points with edits of removing any reference to stakeholders, of course. And I think that might be it on our slides, but I'm not sure. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Commissioner Jackson for sharing with us. And we're going to go on.
And if I left anything out from group two, group one, anybody else can add in.
So we'll pause for a second. Anyone else from group one want to add your voice to the presentation?
I think our spokesperson did a spectacular job, as usual.
Outstanding. All right. Well, then with that, we will go ahead and invite group two to present their thinking.
All right, I'm going to represent group two. So we spent a lot of time on the vision statement. And after giving it a lot of thought, we had a draft to propose. All of California's students are inspired and prepared to achieve their highest potential by exceptionally prepared and qualified educators who reflect the diversity of students they serve and are committed to advancing equity and inclusion so all students may thrive. And this came after we actually circled back to what our current vision statement is. And we were trying to pull there were some things we liked about the current one that we were trying to merge into some of the proposed versions of it. And again, we spent a lot of our time discussing the vision statement, and that's where we landed. For our, let's see, that's the vision statement. I'm trying to figure out what the blue was there. That might have been an additional draft, and maybe someone from group two can.
Bonnie, it's Johanna. I think we actually were kind of considering maybe the first one and also maybe the second one, because there was definitely support for some of the new drafts that were provided and how we could tweak those. So maybe you want to read that blue one too, because that was also.
Sure. And again, I will say we spent so much time on just this part. So another version we had is California's diverse, equity-minded educators are well prepared and highly qualified to provide the learning experience and supports needed for all students to reach their full potential and thrive. And one of the connections between both of these, I think we really like the language, the word thrive. And so we added that. We wanted to put in the front, I think in that second version, the idea of the diversity and equity-minded educators, we wanted to put that front and center. So that's why in the second version, we have it moved to the beginning. And I think we liked the concision of that version, which I think most closely reflects version 3 in the draft. We did go on and talk about the mission statement, and again, had some really good discussion around that. And our proposed version of that one was to ensure high quality, relevant, and I think that's a little bit, I think our notes are a little off there because I'm realizing that's not reading correctly. To ensure, I think the word integrity there is off, but to ensure high quality, and can anyone in my group, because that doesn't look like what I remember us, it's not reading correctly. Maybe I'll skip that first part.
I think, Bonnie, really we were, for this one, we just did some small changes to draft mission statement number 1. And so I think it should just say to ensure high quality, relevance, and integrity.
There, okay. Relevance, that was the word that was throwing me right there. And integrity in the preparation, certification, and discipline of the educators who serve California students while advancing equity, inclusion, and diversity in the recruitment and preparation of the education workforce. Thank you, Commissioner Hartwig, for that. I got stuck there on relevant. I think that was relevance. Thank you. And then lastly, the value statements, I think we agreed. We, for the most part, really liked the value statements. There was one, we had thought that perhaps the 2 bullets, the one that had to do with engagement and the one that had to do with listening, that those could be consolidated. And so we have that version there, listen to the voices and ideas of educators. We wanted to change parents and guardians to families to be more inclusive. Students, our education partners and employees so that we can engage meaningfully in the business of the commission. And I think I need the next slide for the rest. Oh, it looks like part of it got cut off, but I think the rest of it was very similar to the original language with that one as well. So,
Bonnie, can I jump in with just one other?
Absolutely jump in. I think
Sorry about
lunch gave me a gap to forget some of it.
Didn't, looks like maybe it got cut off in the notes, but one suggestion that we had was somehow to include in the commitment statements references to taking a leadership role in building our major partnerships with other major state players in order to advance the welfare of students and the welfare of the profession. And so I think we might have had some language on that. We had tagged it on to the taking a leadership, I got to find my, leadership
thank you.
role.
Yes, and that was absolutely, and thank you for refreshing that. A big part of the discussion was the idea of the collaboration. So thank you for adding that. I think it just got cut off on our slide though. So, right, the last bullet, play a leadership role in advancing the education profession. We wanted to add something in there to address the collaborations that the commission has with other states. So with both national, statewide, and local education groups.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if there's anything else, team, feel free to add it. But I think that about sums things up.
So I'll just pause for a second, see if anyone wants to add. All right. Doesn't seem that way, but always know we are open to whatever you want to share with us. So let's move on then to group 3. And the presenter for group 3, if you'd like to unmute and begin.
So I have that honor. You know, our group really had this rich conversation, thanks to Commissioner Greno-Shire and commission staff about what is a vision statement and what is the structure of a vision statement. And so we went with kind of the idea about what if a vision statement was really concise and was future focused as well, and took in consideration kind of this present moment that we're in. And so we have come with a draft statement of ensure equity-driven and student-focused educator preparation, development, and support. It was really our hope that the vision statement centered students, centered equity, and really considered the life cycle of an educator, and wasn't solely focused on preparation. And then similarly, so when we came to the mission statement, we actually edited this a couple of times, and we kind of came to the conclusion that we really wanted to put forward the second part of the mission statement 1 first, that we're advancing equity, inclusion, and diversity in the recruitment and development of the education workforce by ensuring relevance, high quality, and integrity in the preparation, certification, and discipline of the educators who serve California students. So we felt like it was really important to call out the work around equity, inclusion, and diversity. And we probably actually want to reorder those words because we talked a lot about aligning DEI and staying with that kind of known framework. The values overall, we felt represented the commission's values, and we just had some changes about kind of reordering that maybe we would kind of want to look at. What are things that are priorities for us? Not that none of our values are less than others, but just to kind of really think about the order of the values. We wanted to make sure that, like other groups mentioned, to replace the word stakeholders. Again, that correction of the DEI framework of advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion for that first bullet point. We talked a lot about the verbs that were used in the action words. And so thinking about the word listen, we liked the idea of using the word engage, as it has a more like active, that we actually do something when we listen, that we're engaging with our community partners. And then we also wanted to shift the language around play a role in the leadership quote, because it felt like play, right? Like, what do we think of when it's play? And so I really appreciate Commissioner Grenner-Shire really pulling that language out. And so making that a stronger statement, like lead the advancement of the education profession. And then we kind of also played around with what if we combined some of our value statements? For example, there were 2 value statements, 4 and 5, that were around engaging and listening. So what if we combine those statements to be engaged meaningfully with educators, parents, guardians, students, institutions of higher education, and public school employees to support all voices in the development and implementation of commission policy. And then we ran out of time, but we also had an interest maybe in exploring the idea of combining bullet point 3 and 6 that showed that we have a theory of action that's data-driven, and that leads us to innovate. Team, did I capture that?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you to group 3 and to you, Megan, for presenting and your team, and on to group 4. And I think in group 4, we may have gotten cut off before we identified someone to share. But if one of the group members wants to unmute and share, great.
I don't mind taking it again.
Thank you, Adriana.
Yeah, of course, unless anybody feels so inclined to jump in. And please feel free to if I leave anything out. Okay, we talked really extensively actually about this mission and about just the vision of everything and how we see it, and especially in regards to wording and trying to encompass everything that the commission stands for and wants to work towards, along with trying to represent the vast community that we also are trying to represent and reach. But we kind of redrafted the vision statement, as you can see here. We talked a lot about, again, who to include and what to include, and the type of verbiage and wordage to use when doing so. But we revised something. It's all students in California's public schools. We liked we liked that this encompassed all students in California. So we liked the beginning of that, and I think that was in the first draft that was on the document as all students. So we kept that in our redraft. But we really liked the idea of equity-minded. We thought that was something that was fairly strong. We also had a lot of discussion about development and well-being, and what those two things mean, and how they can be used and represented to also the public, and as educators, what we think and know about those two words and what they really mean in regards to the student first. And that was another discussion that we had when we were talking about the redraft are we student first, or is it the educators that we're preparing to then put the students first? So we talked a lot about that and had some really profound discussion in that regard. And yeah, you can see here the redraft vision that we put. And then we have another important thing to highlight is some questions in regards to our priorities when thinking about the mission statement. And it was Commissioner Francois who brought this to the group, and it was the priority to advance educational justice, and this idea of advancing by doing something is different than doing something, and then there's some examples there, but I think that was something that was really, it was a concept worth thinking about, and a concept we're thinking about when constructing a mission that is going to represent the commission. So if anybody wants to add anything else, please feel free to. Hopefully I captured the essence of our conversation.
That was great. Thank you, Ms. Baez. We had a lot of ideas.
Very good. All right. Well, those are our 4 groups. And again, thank you so much for the thought and the time and the careful thinking that went on. It's very clearly reflected in your sharing out. And again, there are some things I think that across our presentations produce kind of a bit of a pattern for us to identify and think about as we kind of summarize and look across all of the different suggestions, comments, editorial suggestions, etc. So I'm going to pause for a second, see if anyone has a thought to share at this point after we're 2 conversations in around our strategic plan before we move on to our 3rd discussion, which is coming right up. But I'll just pause for a second. Anyone want to jump in?
I have just 2 thoughts. One is, I do think in terms of how we order things, both within sentences and within lists, that it's a tricky challenge, but I do think it's important that we lead first with what our core mission is and follow that up with the ways in which we want to do that through advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion, because that is core to what we want, how we want to do everything. But when the public is reading, I think they want to see exactly what the function is that we are doing. And so this is just, so for example, in the values, I think that I might actually suggest flipping bullets 1 and 2 so that the first bullet would be promote and recognize excellence in the preparation and practice of California's education workforce. That is the core of what it is that the commission does. And then follow that up with the second bullet about advancing equity, inclusion, and diversity, which is how we want to do it, but how we want to achieve the core of our function, but the core of our function is that. So I just think that that's something that we want to do as gracefully as possible, while still making sure that as much as we want to have an equity lens in everything that we do, we need to frame it so that that's shown. That's what the lens and the manner in which we do the thing we do is. I may not have said that very clearly, but I think that's just an overall. And then I had one other thought, and I'm sorry, this didn't occur to me while we were doing our individual work, but I would like to suggest that somewhere we add within our commitments something having to do with safety and welfare of students, because when we do look at our commitments and values, none of them directly relate to the rigor and integrity that we bring to our discipline work and the incredible importance that we put on keeping our students safe by making sure educators aren't in the working with students if they're not safe. And I was looking back at the prior statement of values, and that was at least referred to in the prior statement of values in C, where it's we are dedicated and committed to the education and welfare of California's diverse students. So it's not really, talking about it in specifics, but it's at least sort of in there, and that's not really in this value statement. So I think I would like somewhere in there to be a commitment to the safety of our the safety and welfare of our students in that way. Otherwise, I kind of feel like it's missing one of our really important commitments. And maybe somebody can point out to me if it's included within one of those other bullets, but I didn't really see it. Thanks.
Very thought-provoking points that you've brought up. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's just so helpful to hear what each of you are thinking. Look, Michael, you have your hand up. De La Torre, Commissioner De La Torre.
Yes, thank you. Just one thing that, as Commissioner Hartwig was stating about putting the core of our work first and then the equity and diversity second, I think that I would feel more comfortable embedding the diversity and equity into the first one, so that it's not here's number one and here's number two, because number two implies less important. And I think that the diversity issues and the equity is equally as important, if not more so than the other work that we do, because by leaving it second, it can be left out. So if it's embedded within the first one, that it's automatically in there. So we don't even have to think about the diversity issues and the equity issues, if that makes sense. Just from personally feeling that as a BIPOC, I've always felt that when I'm walking down the sidewalk, I go around to let others through. Always. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael. And I certainly did not mean to imply a lesser importance. I'm just thinking about,
No worries.
Reading presentation and sort of how things are digested when they're read in terms of, understanding.
Yes, and I agree with you, Commissioner Hartwig. It's just that I think it's so important to have it embedded there so that it's not even a separate issue. If we could just have it embedded so that it's not a separate issue. Because I believe that they're one and the same, two integrated. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Other voices, anyone else want to share a last thought? Mary's hand is up. Dr.
So is
Sandy,
Anne-Marie's.
please. And Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie Francois, if you wouldn't mind to go first, and then we'll let Mary have the final word.
I just wanted to chime in on the conversation, not the exchange between Commissioners Hartwig and De La Torre. I think this is a question that has to be addressed in all three: the mission, the values, and the vision statement, and being really clear about what our priorities are. And it's grappling with that is hard, because from my perspective, our mission, what we're seeking to do is create conditions of educational justice. That's what we're seeking to do. And the way that we're doing it is through the set of work activities around recruitment, licensure, support, intervention, discipline, is that what you want to call it? And I do agree with Commissioner Hartwig that how you order those things, even in a sentence, messages what is most important to you. Is it the set of work activities, or is it why you're doing that set of work activity? So as Adriana was describing before, there's a huge difference between saying advancing educated justice through and by recruitment, retention, licensure of a diverse group of educators than recruitment, retention, licensure, et cetera, while doing this work of educational justice. It sounds like a really fine distinction, but I think it's a powerful distinction that I think that we want to keep discussing. I would like to keep discussing it.
Mary.
I find this, the refinement of our understanding occurs in the midst of this kind of dialogue. And I'm really appreciating the power of language here. I'm also, I think that we can integrate these concepts in ways that don't seem to prioritize one thing over the other. I think the work on the conceptual framework begins to do that. And I'm excited to take up that challenge and to work with you to get this to a place where we feel that we are advancing precisely what we mean to be as we do what we're required to do moving forward. So I'm just I'm really reflecting on how this is a refining process, a refining of our understanding, and meaning making, a sense making activity. Ultimately, how often do we get to do that, commissioners? So it's a good opportunity. Thank you for being so present and honest and in it.
Thanks, Anna Marie and Mary. That's both helpful for my understanding. I appreciate this follow-up discussion.
Great. All right, we are looking at the time. It's 1:32-ish, all right, around there. And we're thinking we have one more conversation to have, and we don't want to shortchange that. So we are going to move ourselves along if you are all ready to move into our third conversation. And when you go into your breakout rooms, everyone will remember to put their record back on, et cetera. And of course, we're welcoming the public to join us to observe and listen to these conversations and add to the Padlet. Lots of good ideas there as well that we are capturing. So we're going to go ahead and move into our breakout rooms. James is going to take us there, and we will
before
have
we
some
do
chat. And Mary, please jump in.
Before we do, I just wanted to say that we had a quick check-in with the chair before we got started again at 1 o'clock, and we are aiming for a 2:30 adjournment if possible. So I think what that means, it being 1:30, is that we start the conversation in the next work group, and it is maybe the most complex of the conversations we're going to have today. So let's not think we're going to finish it, but maybe our facilitators can work on surfacing the issues that really we want to revisit as we go. And maybe this will feel more like a Jamboard exercise than a crafting finally completed thought exercise. I think that if we can, because we do want to also provide the opportunity for public comment. We've had the public with us. And then we have just our closing item, which is public comment. So if we can be done with our debrief by 2:15 or 2:15, that would give us the opportunity to hear from the public before we close. Does that work for everybody? Madam Chair? Am I capturing where you think we are with this?
It does, but I don't think we need a hard stop. If we are in the midst of a really important conversation, let's have it. If people have the energy for it, but we'll shoot for that.
Okay.
So what we can do to help facilitate that, Chair Sloan and Dr. Sandy, is we can check in with the groups and see how they're doing. Let's plan for conversation till at least 2:10, 2:15. We'll check in and see how we're doing. And yes, we do need absolutely to have time for the public to weigh in. So why don't we move along and begin our conversations? And these are beginning conversations, and we'll come along and check behind, see how we're doing, and let you know the flow for the afternoon. Thank you, everyone. James?
Okay, I am opening the breakout rooms now. Please remember to click on the OK so that you can go to the breakout room, and opening now.
Are we the only ones back?
So far, but it might be a hint that it's time for everyone to come.
Yeah, we were told about a minute ago they asked for 2 more minutes, so about time for them to come back.
Aaron, you left us hanging.
I know, to the way.
Some real structural changes too.
To the way that higher ed feels to these students when they come. And so it makes me think about because that's a huge ship to turn, if that's what needs to happen. And so
good point.
How do you do that? And could we start to chip away at that in educator prep by changing our expectations around some of the curriculum that some of the programs to think about the focus of their student services and their delivery.
That is such a good point that we have to keep talking about that one at our next conversation. So remember that, okay?
I will.
Bring it up.
I think about it a lot.
Thank you. Wonderful, and welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for your afternoon conversations, and I am excited and looking forward to hearing the summaries from each group. So we are going to turn our attention to that. And James, you're going to put the recording for the main group back on. I can see it's there. So thank you. And we will start again with group one.
All right, so I'm the spokesperson for group one once again, and here are some things we talked about. And now here is Commissioner Jackson.
That's awesome.
This is
Love
me.
it.
You know, we certainly the conversation, I liked what Chair Sloan said. This conversation could go on like all day about this, just throwing out ideas and everything, but really getting down to, I think one of the themes what's the role that CTC can play in, contributing to the conversations that are going on about diversifying the workforce, how, what their role is without, stepping into anyone else's lane, but also the importance of, breaking down silos and really coming together in partnership and sharing what, great practices are going on or what knowledge is out there. And the things that CTC does have a role in right now, such as, how to navigate wanting to be an educator and going through that navigation. There may be other entities or agencies out there that have a handle on that, and CTC can partner with and share information and help to make that navigation easier. And just there was just a lot of rich discussion that I can't even capture all here, or we would be here all night, but we know the conversation is an important one. It's ongoing, and we look forward to having that conversation ongoing.
Thank you for those words, Commissioner Jackson. And we will move ahead to group two then to share, please.
I was in group two. I think Commissioner Cardenas, were you going to share for us? Not to put you on the spot.
Maybe they're on mute.
I'm scrolling to see. There he is. Whoops.
Might be on mute. Ask to unmute. We have to unmute you, perhaps. James, can you help here? Okay. I think James is working on that for you.
Got it. Thank you so much for unmuting me. I appreciate that. I was trying to get out of it and let my group do it, but I was muted. There was definitely a lot of rich conversations in our group. We started off with many questions. I'm sure as many groups have started off with, but we really went forward with, what can we do? And Phyllis actually brought us back to center as far as what can we do as a commission. So for us to really deal with, DEI, there are some questions that we had is, are we providing supports to ensure students are passing tests? So if we looked at the data, right, if we were able to look at data, could this data be available to us? Could we look deeper into that? Retention data, how can we keep students in the teaching profession? And then who is renewing and who is not renewing credentials? By asking that question, there was actually somebody that was with us that told us we do have that data available to us as far as renewal data, and it's even longitudinal within the last 5 years. So these are quite great questions to ask, because who are we keeping? Who are we supporting along the way? And then one of the questions that one of the commissioners had was, who's obtaining an administrative credential? What that really meant is along the career ladder, how are people advancing in their careers? And we talked about leadership. Admin is one way, right? Administration, but then there's so many other ways. For example, do we have any way to measure people who are TOSAs, who are teachers on special assignment, who become coaches or mentors? Other data that we are looking at is, should we be looking at should we have demographic data represented to CTC that we've already obtained? So for example, there's data that we already receive on a report, for example. How can we ask deeper questions about that data? How can we really start to tease out or disaggregate the data even further? Because that would really allow us to find out a little bit more as far as what's happening in those areas or in those institutions. And then the other one was, should we be more informed about questions, issues regarding DEI? Which means, how can we partner with other entities, as it was brought up in the other group, to really go on the knowledge that's out there from community partners? How can we tap into that knowledge that other community partners have to really help us understand what they're doing to address DEI issues or what they've done? So some of the things that we asked also in regards to measurable goals, like how do we know we've met these goals for DEI? First of all, is there a goal in mind? Have we ever set a goal? For example, do we have a certain date? By 2023, we will have 500 teachers that have gone into a residency program in the Central Valley. So do we have a definitive goal or a definitive number? I don't know if that's ever been set. And in order to really measure that progress. And then the other one was, should we set specific goals? For example, and I had mentioned about in different areas. So if we've noticed that there's a need in a specific area of the state or specific credential, do we know what those numbers are and how can we define what that goal can be? And then we've also talked about how strongly we can advocate as commissioners or as a commission on behalf of DEI. So one of the recommendations that was given to us was that we can work on writing some sort of analysis to really encourage support for programs. For example, like if there's a pilot program that did very well, how can we encourage maybe the legislator to look at those programs to maybe enhance them? And then other things to really think about too, are we should really think about who's at the table and who's not at the table, right? Who's being represented and who's not being represented when we're having these discussions. And then just the other thing that was brought up, and I know I'm speaking a lot, but the part that was brought up by one of our commissioners was, what are those barriers? If there's a sequential way to capture the barriers for somebody who starts off as a candidate, goes into the program, becomes a teacher, what are those barriers that are along that educational journey that exists that we could capture and try to address? Really having that sequential knowledge so we can address those various barriers. And I think the last thing that I have is, by having a lot of this data that we already have available to us, we could probably just really look at that data, and that data will help illuminate the issues that already exist. And so you really tapping into data that we currently have and diving deeper into it. And please, if there's anybody else that would like to add on my group, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cardenas. Anyone else from the group? I'll pause for a second. Seems you have covered.
Great. Thank
yes.
you. I was just saying that was great. Thank you for that full coverage, Commissioner Cardenas.
Thank you, Johanna. Okay, then that brings us along then to group 4, because I believe group 3 was dispersed to join other groups. Is that true? Or did group 3 have notes? Group 3 has notes. Who from group 3?
There was no group 3.
There was no group 3. So that we are with group 4. So Adriana, you are on.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay. So we also had a lot of powerful conversation. I think I'm still marinating on a lot of it, actually, but let's see. Okay. So things that we discussed, let's see. Oh, we discussed a lot of, the descriptive analysis of the data. And again, kind of connecting to group 2 there, this idea of specific goals and specific programs and things like that. What can we provide in that regard that can go hand in hand with the data that the commission can use to inform these policies. So I thought I took note of that, the idea that Group 2 just brought up, these measurable goals and specific goals. I think that's something that's really powerful, and it connects with our idea of what we're asking from these programs to provide in regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I thought that was really great there to make a connection to another point. Let's see, what data with regard to ethnicity, socioeconomic, are we allowed to connect? So we talked a little bit about, okay, where's the line? What are we able to even display? How do we collect this data? And again, this overarching concept of how can we use the data to be purposeful. I think that was something that we really kind of was threaded into a lot of our conversation was, okay, what data can we collect? And with the data that we are collecting, how can we use it, right? So kind of tying that in. Let's see, what are the theoretical frameworks in research? So that was one point, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that was really great. And it was this idea of research that guide the commission's perspective on equity. So really kind of breaking down that foundation of, okay, we're hearing, DI being used a lot, but what does that really mean? And what research do we have to back that? And how can we do a scan of what we're asking to see? And where's this research pointing to? And we talked a lot about how research is something that we all look at when we are reading through something. So who are they citing, right? So that's extremely important in kind of like the backbone of where this data, how we're going to use this data is where the research is coming from. And then needing to be very intentional about the research we want. So I kind of just stated that. So being intentional and purposeful with this research. Again, what information do we want? A lot of these questions, right? The who, what, where, when, and why. And I think that's really foundational when talking about data, because data is something that can be so fragile, right? And then we want to refine our understanding of what constructs DEI and what this means to teacher preparation. So there was a conversation that was continuing when we came back in the main session, and something that I really find is a little passion project of mine when thinking about data and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it is this diversity within teacher preparation programs. And how can we use that data of what types of professors are at these higher institutions, all these types of things. So that was something that really resonated with me. So making that connection to another conversation that was had. But as you all can see, we all groups dived into a lot of great things. But as far as our group, this is kind of what we found and discussed.
Well, thank you very much. Anyone else from Group 4 want to back up Adriana or add anything?
Great job, Liaison Baez.
Yes, and just a very thoughtful job by all. And so thank you again for your conversation, for all of your ideas and suggestions, edits, etc. We will be gathering up all of this information from the Padlets, lots of busy action there, from the notes that were taken in each breakout room, and of course from your summary slides. So with that, I'm going to thank you all, and thank particularly the facilitators for their dedication to taking notes and being with you today, and to James for being our producer. And I will turn it back to you, Mary and Tina, for next steps. And we do have one last slide. One more slide, there we go. So hopefully many of you got to see Amanda Gorman when she gave her, when she read her poem at the inaugural, and we added this slide in. And James, I don't know, you picked this slide out. It's a fantastic way to end our day, I think, if you wanted to speak to it for a second, and then we'll turn it to Mary and Dr. Sloan. James, we lost James. So I will just pause for a second here and say, please take a minute and read this slide. There is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. And so great words, I think, from Amanda Gorman, things for us to keep in mind as we move forward with our work together. And so I will turn it back to you, Mary and Dr. Sloan, for closing comments.
Madam Chair, I defer to you.
Thank you, Director Sandy. Thank you, everyone, for the work that we did today. I found it so productive to be talking in small groups and really talking through some of the things that we are trying to craft. I think we have actually come far. I think this past year, when we were trying to gather all of the information that we have and put all of our thoughts on the table, I really feel like it's coming together. And I want to thank you for your tenacity today and over the last 3 days to sit here and do this. So next steps is that we would like to have an ad hoc of some of our commissioners work with some of our staff to put these ideas into the next sort of phase and draft of the strategic plan. Director Sandy and I will talk a little bit more in detail about what we think we want to do. So there's that. And then there is having the continued conversation, as we said, this last piece in group 3 that we just did. Let's do that again in small groups and let's mix it up a little bit, but let's continue to get these ideas out on the table so that we can start crafting the processes for our work. And this isn't just going to be a 2022 thing or a 2023 thing. It's going to be building a foundation for our work here on forward. So we will now open for public comment if there, and I'm just wondering, maybe we should just go, thank you, go back to gallery. If there are members of the public that would like to give a presentation, please notify the meeting moderator by clicking on the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom or pressing *9 if participating by phone. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
Yes, Harold Acord. Please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Hello, my name is Harold Acord, representing the around 300,000 members of the California Teachers Association. I hope that every commissioner and staff member looks closely at, well, besides that, first I want to say thank you for this opportunity to speak and for the great work that the staff did to put together this whole item. And it was good to be able to observe and see the discussions that were going on. Secondly, I'd like to say, please do look at, whether you're staff or a member of the commission, the Padlet, because there are a lot of good comments there from people whose voices were muted and were turned off. And there were comments about the diversity of the people who were able to speak and the diversity of those who were muted. So I think that's important. We are always happy as CTA to give presentations. We're happy to come and present at a future meeting about how do we come up with our testimony? Where does it come from? What's it based on? And I can ensure everyone here that's listening that it's not just based on what Harold Acord thinks or what Danette Brown thinks. It's really based on a whole system of vetting and representing the entire state membership of the California Teachers Association. So we're always happy to share how do we get the opinions and what they're based on with you, because I think that's important, where you understand what the work is that we've done before we've ever even come here to offer testimony. And I think that the commission is on the right track in many ways around DEI, but I also think it needs to work harder on putting its actions, its words into its actions on what it does, and listening to people of color and other diverse things, such as people who are not cisgender, people who are not straight, and people who are LGBTQIA. So I look forward to continuing on this journey that I've been doing since 2006 with the commission, and to see how we can all work together to make sure that we're ensuring a good, safe place for all of the diversity, the richness that exists here in the state of California amongst educators and amongst the most important people, our students, every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Acord. Always thoughtful comments. Appreciate it. I believe there's an additional public comment.
Janet Davis, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Hello, I'm Janet Davis, representing the California Federation of Teachers. And I'd like to echo what Harold said. We do try to reflect. We meet with regional leaders to find out what issues are pressing for our members. So when we do say we, or teachers think, we are not reflecting our personal opinions, and we go back to leadership and talk about what happens in these meetings. I was so appreciative to be able to listen to your thoughtful conversations, and so impressed with all of you. The depth of reflection that you showed. And I did like the idea of looking at how the data is aggregated and what questions those might answer, like that question of who gets a credential and then who renews it. Like, are we keeping our diverse, maybe they become a teacher, they get a credential, but are they renewing their credential and staying in the field? So I think it's very exciting, the questions that were being asked in the small group. I appreciated that. Because I think we can find some regional differences. We can find out who are the people who are staying, who's not staying, and maybe ask, what can we do to make sure that we do keep those diverse candidates? They become a teacher, and if they leave, then we haven't really made the progress that we want to make. So it was a very thoughtful discussion, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Janet, for your thoughtful comments, as always, as well. Are there additional public comments?
There are no additional public comments.
I don't see people raising hands. Okay, commissioners, this is an information/action item, though I don't know that we have any action that we have determined that we want to have a motion for. That said, unless I'm wrong and somebody wants to put forward a motion, you may do that. The other thing we may do is direct staff in a particular way. And we may have done that in our small groups as well. I think staff have taken a lot of notes and have a lot of direction, but if there are other things that you would like to say before we close the item, please feel free, and I will let our director, Sandy, come in.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank all of you for 3 days of meeting that have covered our waterfront and begun to dream up our next waterfront. It's been very rich, and you're just an amazing group of people, and I'm so grateful that we get to work together in this way. And you have put a great deal of information into the Padlet. I think has got some great feedback from not just commissioners, but the broader community that was with us. The staff have been taking deep notes. We've recorded all of the sessions, so we have a great deal of work to do, really, to begin to sort, analyze, and hopefully work with an ad hoc group of commissioners selected by the chair to start to put together a draft of a strategic plan that captures a vision, mission, values, and set of goals that can guide the work for the next 3 to 5 years. So we look forward to that work. We're excited by the terrain we need to cover as we get there, and we thank you. And we also want to wish you a very happy holiday season and rest. Please find some time for rest before the end of the year, because next year is going to come in with a bang. We've got a lot to do.
Yeah, thank you. Now, it may be that my script is not clear to me, but there is now, it seems like we are moving to agenda item 1K, new business in the bi-monthly agenda. Yeah. Okay. So in terms of this agenda item with our strategic plan, I don't think we have any action that we have. It's an information item. We have given a lot of direction in our small groups, and unless anybody else has anything, I think we can close this item. Yeah. Okay, seeing none. All right, we now move to item 1K, new business. The bi-monthly agenda is presented for information. Next on the agenda is our presentations. If there are members of the public that would like to give a presentation, please notify the meeting moderator by clicking on the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom, or pressing *9 if participating by phone. Recording secretary, are there any audience presentations?
We do not have any public comments.
All right, I'm going to take this last opportunity to say thank you, CTC staff, for another phenomenal year of service and excellence and innovation. We can't do our work without you in no way, shape, or form. We know Mary is a spectacular leader, but we know, as she has said, it has a lot to do with all of you. So thank you for your work and your service. And thank you, commissioners, for your work and service. And I now adjourn the December 2021 meeting of the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. The next meeting is on February 10th, 11th, 2022.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Thank you all, CTC and commissioners. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Happy holidays.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.